It's the Rod and Cindy podcast, starring Rod Lyman and Cindy Mooby. Hi, welcome to the Rod and Cindy podcast. My name's Rod Lyman, and I'm excited to have a great guest today. Well, we don't have Cindy today. She's out wandering around. Actually, she's in Tucson. She travels a lot and everything else. So my special guest, this wonderful, beautiful woman that's next to me, she's to my left, and her name is Wendy Carroll. Hi, Wendy. How are you doing today?
Great, Rod. How are you?
Fantastic. Why are you staring at me like that?
I'm just listening.
You're just listening? Well, this is a podcast where you have to talk, okay? So let's get right into it. Wendy, what do you do?
What don't I do, Rod?
Good grief.
I do a little bit of everything.
Okay.
I'm still raising kids. I work as a caregiver. I work as a body contouring technician. I work as an energy healer. And I'm pretty busy these days.
Wow. So let's talk a little bit about energy healing. What is that?
Energy healing is a modality that is a very ancient practice that we've been fortunate enough to start learning about in the States, because special people have been bringing us this sacred knowledge. It basically is manipulating and tapping into energy fields inside the body that deal with trauma that is sort of harboring inside that people have not successfully been able to let go of on their own. Everybody walking on planet Earth has experienced trauma on some level. Even people coming in that haven't lived very long may have carried it from a past life. And if it isn't dealt with, it's still there.
Oh, that's very interesting. So how do you deal with that?
Well, everybody's different. There's amazing practitioners. The way that it happened for me is I started to become aware that I could feel it when I had my hands over people's bodies when I was practicing the modality.
So explain that to me. How did you feel it? Explain this feeling.
For me, it's very different. I think I'm different than a lot of my friends that are doing this. When I would put my hands over a chakra, for example, if I was over the heart or even the lungs, I started to notice. I would get a sensation inside of my body and my stomach, and I knew that I was connected energetically with the person, and I would start to feel a sense of nausea, a sense of heaviness, and I intuitively started manipulating that energy and helping it to rise out of the body. I started to find that as I stayed over that area and stayed tuned in, I could use my hands to literally pull it out.
That's fascinating. Now, I have a question about that because now, is this you doing all this? Is that the physical body of you doing this? Because you talked about getting nauseated and everything else. So are you incorporating the physical body?
I think that I'm a conduit, so that's why I feel it. I feel like the person that I'm working on has made a decision inside their heart, and a lot of times it's not even conscious. They know that they are asking for help. I don't think that they're conscious at that time that they are actually healing themselves. It's the openness, the willingness, the readiness to let it go, and then they reach out to find that healer that can assist, and then the healer is a facilitator, a conduit, and the person really is the one working with their guides and their angels.
Right.
And they're doing all the work, they just don't realize it.
So you have a very successful practice. I mean, you see a lot of clients and people come to you from all over the place. That I'm excited to hear about this. But is there any stories you want to share of one particular? We don't have to use names or anything else, but just a situation.
There's a few people that stick out in my mind, but there's one recently that really touched my heart. A young woman in her 20s who called me and said that she is carrying a lot of grief and resentment in her heart, and she was aware that something was very wrong. And she was abandoned by her dad, and there was a lot of anger and grief over that. She got engaged And that relationship fell apart. She felt abandoned by that. And she really felt like she couldn't move forward in her life and be open to really meeting the true love that she was destined to meet, holding all of this old energy inside of her. And I was so impressed with her to call me at such a young age and be aware. So I showed up at her house with my table and we got to work.
Wow. So you have table and well travel, huh?
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
So you shine like you won't believe. You have this beautiful shine about you. Your eyes are sparkling and everything else. That. Where does this come from?
It's just inside. I have become aware that I'm actually living my purpose. There was a time that I didn't feel like this, that I was searching for what my purpose was. I felt a heaviness, a disconnect, that I was looking for myself. And there was a depression and a sadness that never left me. And I knew that I was meant for something great. I knew that I was supposed to be doing something amazing, but I couldn't figure out what it was. And it felt terrible, like you were missing part of yourself. And so what I really think it is because people have been telling me over and over that I'm just emitting this light and this energy, and it's fun to be around me, and that it just radiates something. And I think it's because I finally found myself, found my passion, found my purpose, and put the work in to get here. And it feels good.
But can you see it?
Sometimes, yes.
What do you mean sometimes? I mean,
Well, like right now I can see it. I can see this is special, this life that I'm living.
That's perfectly said. This is special. It is special. You have to really see who you are also, along with what you do for other people.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite things is I always tell everybody, and you've been in my classes too, and that is I would talk about, if you can't see it for yourself, look through my eyes on how I see you.
Yeah. Because
that's how we see each other, is that through other people's eyes, and that gets us going, And, sometimes we talk about, well, you fake it until you make it, and it's just having a knowing. Everybody around here has a knowing. You have a knowing, I have a knowing. The thing is that when I first met you, you didn't have this knowing. You were lost, and I'm not going to say lost. You're still on your journey, no matter where you're at. Okay?
Yeah.
So I'm not going to say you were lost in your journey in that, but you were kind of lost in searching for something. And I always talk about the part of us that it has the spirituality inside us, our essence within us, and everything else, and that how it doesn't match with the physical.
Yeah.
And taking Reiki and getting to know yourself and getting the energy to put together, and then that brings your spirituality with your physical, and it matches it together, and it makes you who you are. It's like putting two matches together and making a larger flame. And that's what you were doing, and that's what you have done. And I'm very proud of you in every aspect of that, of what you do. There's a little story that we talked about, hollow babies.
Yeah.
And that's quite the interesting story, and there's a lot of people that don't understand what a hollow baby is. Would you kind of explain to them what happens in the process of a hollow baby?
Well, I never heard of it before you bringing those words up.
Okay, so you're blaming me now.
So, yeah. So from what I experienced recently, it's a soul that's come in that has maybe realized that things aren't what maybe they thought it was going to be, or the reality of what they're about to experience. They're just not sure if they want to go through with it. And so they sort of detach from the physical body, and the physical body doesn't do very well without the soul. And so it's not happy. So the baby will cry and cry and cry and cry.
Because it wants to be attached to something.
Yeah.
It wants to feel that spiritual feeling that it has. That. So what does that feel like to you as a practitioner, though?
I felt that it was kind of painful to watch a beautiful little being struggle and be searching for itself.
Do you think in your own personal mind that such a thing, such a being can come back and change its mind?
Yes. I had a conversation with the little being.
Well, good for you. And I mean, so it's a higher self, actually, you're having a conversation with.
It was definitely, I was doing distant energy healing. And when I was in a deep meditation, I heard this little being say, I'm just not sure if I want to do this. And it was a cute little voice. And I just kind of gave some encouragement. In my mind, I was speaking to the little being about how, as much as you're seeing the things that maybe you aren't sure about, you're also not considering the beauty that you haven't seen. This little brother that is here to love and guide you.
Wow.
A beautiful, loving mother. And I said, you have me.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, you have me. I won't leave you.
So where did you come up with that? Where did this idea and this feeling of these words, where did these words come from?
They're just there naturally. I didn't know that I had the ability to hear the being like that. So at first I was like, is this real? But then I felt it. I knew this little being was talking to me. So I think I'm being guided. I think it's intuition. I think that I'm just being open, and it's just there naturally.
So where's it coming from? If you're being guided in that, where's this guidance coming from?
To me, it felt like it was the most pure part of myself.
Wow, really? The most pure part of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a name for it? You want to put a label on that?
Some people call it the higher self.
Some people?
Some people call it the oversoul.
Ooh, the oversoul. I like that. It's like,
I just call it me. It was just me, the part of me that has been there.
Absolutely. And see, that's where I come from also, is that if we're so connected with our higher self and everything else, it's just us.
Mm-hmm. There's
no in between. There's no spirit says or whatever else.
Yeah.
It's just us. That's that whole feeling that we have to understand when we're speaking through our higher self, it's us speaking. So it's when a person starts talking third party, it's like, well, spirit says, well, spirit is you. So we don't say that. We just know there's a knowing there that we just speak, and this is what we speak of and everything else. So
exactly.
I love that this is where you get, the knowledge is coming from and everything. Have you been channeling lately?
I think I'm channeling every time I do energy work. I think I'm channeling all the time and don't realize it.
So what else don't you realize is happening to you?
I don't know.
So do you astral travel at night, you think?
Apparently, I am doing a lot of that.
So, and this is funny because I'm going to add this to it. It's because last night her and I were talking about some very spiritual stuff and everything else and that. And I look up and there's this light being coming through the ceiling, and you could tell it's you. I mean, you look at that picture because I took a picture of it.
Yeah.
You look at the picture and it's like, oh my gosh, Wendy's coming here. Nope. Let's seal that up. Let's seal the room up and everything else. So yes, and it's really interesting is my roommate has actually talked about having, people coming in and out and everything else and that, and we know it, we feel it and hear it and everything else.
I bet.
So it's like, I love it. She goes, we're going to have to start asking these people to leave so we can sleep at night.
Oh, that's funny.
And it's just awesome because we're both on the opposite ends of the house. And we can actually hear people walking in the hallway, opening doors and everything else like that. And it's like, there's a communication that I didn't even realize that when I leave all my clients at home, I mean, not at home, outside the home. And I make sure I brush off, I cut cords and everything else and that. And I keep telling my roommate, it's like, I keep doing this. I cut everything, and she goes, no, you talk to these people at night before you go to bed and everything else, and you leave it open. Mm. And I never thought of that until she said that. Is that I leave that door open, and I have left that door open for people just to go, hello, Rod. Mm-hmm. Rod, are you there?
Yeah.
And then, well, if Rod's not here, let's go see what Virginia's doing. So they walk down the hallway and go, hello, Virginia.
Oh, my goodness.
So it's kind of crazy that we are conduits like that.
Yeah.
And knowing that we're one, we create that oneness around us, even where we're at and everything else. So I've been sealing it up. And it's like, okay, time to sleep. I don't want to disturb Virginia anymore. I don't want to disturb myself, my sleep, or whatever else. So I have been sealing. It's like, only good light may pass through. I already do that, to make sacred space. But I made a thought last night And it was actually after you and I got done talking and everything else is that, as I saw it as an open receiver. I mean, the old days, remember those phones that you had on the wall and everything else? And that. So what I did is I took that receiver and I hung it up and in my mind. So which means I disconnected.
Oh, good.
And yeah, it's kind of a cool thing and everything
Yeah.
else. Like, you can still come visit me. I don't care.
Yeah.
That's, but we'll have to do it without Virginia knowing.
We won't wake Virginia up.
No.
So that was crazy because I was talking to you on the phone and I guess my higher self decided, well, I'll just go visit. I wasn't aware of it. But then he sends a picture showing it.
What were we talking about at that time?
We were talking about portals.
Yes.
And I said, because I could see them in the dark, and I was spinning and opening one. And I said, I'm going to walk through it. But I was joking.
And as soon as she said, I'm going to walk through it, this light appears above me. And I grab my phone and I take a picture of it because it's like, oh my gosh, guess where she's going? She's coming to me.
I could have went anywhere. And I visited Rod.
Exactly. So isn't that kind of crazy? Is that what we set our intent on, or what we set our mind on, we will follow through it.
That's where the energy goes.
Exactly. But we don't know where it's going to end because that's the journey. And we need to really kind of look at the journey and see where this journey is taking us in many different ways in that. So it's like we peek our heads into it's like, oop, okay, not here. Oop, not here.
Yeah.
And that's where we're at in our life too, is like we have all these doors that we could walk through until we just walk through and we don't know what's on the other side.
That's right.
And I think that's the most important thing is that we start looking at these doors and going, where does this lead me? And not worry about it and just jump.
You have to.
So I posted the other day on Facebook. It's something that I was really passionate about is that we are here to experience things. That means even experience each other. Mm-hmm. That's life. I mean, so how do you see that? It's like, do you see that as we need to experience each other in a certain way? Or how do you see that?
Well, it's interesting because so many of us want to stay home away from people. But you're supposed to be around the people. It's just an interesting phenomenon.
Raise your hand if you don't like people. I won't say who raised their hand in here. No finger pointing, okay?
Okay.
But you're right. You're absolutely right. So what in this community, what can we do about this? I mean, we're supposed to experience people.
We have to let down our guards and open our hearts. Everybody is walking around in brain still. People think that they're really getting spiritually enlightened and they think they're starting to wake up and understand. But if you catch them when they're not in their spiritual group, they're probably road raging. All these things they're not supposed to be doing because they're still in brain. They haven't stepped into their heart full time. So
it's the idea that what do you do when nobody's looking at you?
Right.
But isn't that interesting? Is our higher self is always watching, our oneness is always watching. We have a knowing about that. And that's crazy that we feel this and we know this, that we're being watched all the time.
We sure are.
So you can't hide that.
Mm-mm.
You have to acknowledge that you are an angel having a human experience, right?
Yes.
And how do you feel about that?
I think that it's true. I think that it's an interesting thing to know that we are these light beings full of grace, directly connected to source, having a human experience with all of those shortcomings and having to figure out how to blend it and get to a higher state of being. And like I said, staying in heart full time, that's the trick.
Staying what?
In your heart full time. And what are you doing when no one's watching? Are you staying in that frequency, in that vibration?
So do you speak from your heart?
Oh, quite often I speak from my heart. No, I speak from my head a lot, and then I say, okay, get back in your heart. That was your brain doing that.
So is it a hard thing to do?
I think once you become more aware, it gets easier because you make the conscious choice. I want to be this type of person.
So you're living in soul most of the time.
Yes, that's what the goal is.
To live in soul.
And then about your, do we need to be connected? Do we need to be around people? It makes me think, what's the problem with people not getting along and all of this tension and all of these problems? And I think it's what I said. If you're in your brain and you're not in your heart, everything's harder. If everybody was in their heart to where you looked kind and gentle and soft when no one was watching, then when we did come together, all of those little problems would melt away.
Right.
There's the issue that we're all dealing with.
And that's really true, is that we try to hide everything, even our emotions, from other people. And that, especially a man has grown up, and that is like, don't cry, you're a baby if you cry.
Yeah.
You can't have feelings, you can't do this and everything else. That's what I was told as I grew up. And I was told quite the opposite. I was very sensitive. I'm sensitive to everything. And you'll never be a man if you're this sensitive. And it's like, okay, then what am I going to be? A cow? I don't care.
I know. I've heard that from some of the older men in my family.
Yeah. And it's really interesting is that there's still people around here that believe that this is the way man's life is that a man is not strong if he cries. Because they've heard that over and over and over. But does that mean the same thing as a woman? You're weak because you cry,
Yeah.
And so is that where the people get this? And I'm going to tell you something. Crying is a celebration. And I'm going to tell you that people that cry and show their emotions and be out there and everything else, they're important. And they know that they have something going on. And that, crying doesn't have to be for sadness. It can be for happy and everything else. And there's so much stuff out there that people can see and just cry about. Mm-hmm. The first time I really remember crying in front of people was watching Old Yeller.
Yeah, I was like that too.
Yes, and I was around a bunch of people, and they're all looking at me, and they, "Are you crying? You're a guy. Why are you crying?" It's like, did you watch what I watched? Old Yeller was shot. No, for everybody that didn't see Old Yeller, do not listen to that part, because we don't want to tell how it ends,
I have the same experiences growing up. What was I watching? My grandmother took me to see A Star is Born as a young teen. I got so into the feeling of that movie and that beautiful love that they had. I cried so hard. My grandmother said, "Oh my gosh, if I had known, I would have never taken you." And I remember thinking, because my cousins were fine, but I was on the floor. I could feel things so deeply. I've always been like that.
Sensitive people, are around us, and they're all around us. I mean, there's quite a few less sensitive men. Okay, I have to back up on that. There's a lot of sensitive men, but they've been sensitized by their life. They've been told they can't be sensitive, but they still are. So this is where the struggle comes down the road for them, because they don't know there's a struggle there. And I think our next podcast that we're going to actually do, and that you're going to be part of it also, and I'm glad you are, is we're going to actually talk about the struggle that, men and women have and things like that. And so stay tuned for the next podcast.
That's awesome.
Yes. So I really believe that, people put labels on everything, and I don't want that anymore. I'm working myself on really hard at putting a label on somebody, but I hear it all the time. It's like, oh, that's a millennial. That's this, that's that. And I don't want to do that anymore. I mean, I'm working hard not to do that. As long as I've been around doing spirituality and I talk through my heart and everything else, that there's some worldly things that come into me that I really have to work on myself. And we have to work on this on a daily basis. We have to work on relationships. We have to work on relationships of ourselves. We have to work on everything is something that we're working on. And one of my things is that I'm taking healing out of my verbiage. And as I start taking healing out of my verbiage, I am actually going to talk about it's not healing, it's growing. We're all growing.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yep, exactly. And something Abraham Hicks has actually said, and it is our promise to you, if you will write things you appreciate in others, in life, in yourself, you will have such a dramatic change in 30 days. If you continue this for 6 months, the change will be so powerful, so strong that others who know you will not recognize the old you. Abraham Hicks. Now the thing is that that's what we work on. It's like we really truly work on it, and we work on these things that we want everybody else to see. So we're working by example. It's you. We're going all the way around to the circles. Like why we can't stay at home, why we have to people every day, and why we people is because we have to be an example out there of love and life. I don't know very many energy workers and light workers or whatever labels you want to name these people, and that just loving people and that haven't gone through a traumatic experience.
Yeah, why is that? Every one of us has a story that will just bring you to your knees and you want to cry for a day. Every one of us. We've had to go through it.
Oh, exactly. And the thing is that we don't have to. Now, Buddha was trying to teach us that. And that's the concept of that. One of my clients laid on my table, and she's been doing this for a long time, and she's laying on my table, and she's looking up at me, and she says, why do we have to experience everything to help other people? And I said, Buddha said we don't have to. Buddha didn't experience that. Buddha was this prince, not princess, sorry, Buddha. He's this prince that was this beautiful man that was hidden behind these walls. And he wasn't let out to see what the real world was because they didn't want him to see this. He escaped and went out and saw the real world, and he saw poor and poverty and all this other stuff. And he's like, why are you living this way? And he's asking these people, why are you living this way? And they said, because this is the way life is. He goes, no, you should have riches just like us. And he goes, no, we give our riches to you. So he says, this is it. I've got to change this. And he went back behind the walls and he's pondering of how he can do this. He meets this beautiful woman. He has a child with this beautiful woman. And as he looked at this beautiful woman and the child, he goes, this is what I have to change. My child and this beautiful woman I have to know what it's like to be out there in the real world. But he never got to experience it. He experienced it through knowing. He went and sat underneath a tree outside the walls, and he had all this download and this feeling and everything else, and he got to experience it by a knowing, not to have to experience it in real life. And that's what we should be doing, is we should be experiencing it through a knowing that we have. But no, everybody, we have to touch. What's that? We have to poke. What's that? We poke and touch things we don't understand. That society has taught us that. So let's change that around and that just set in peace in a meditation and bring the experiences to us so we can experience and say to another person, I've been in your shoes. But not physically, in a spiritual sense, because there's enough of us that makes a oneness of who we are. And as this oneness of who we are, we gathered around and we have all that information. I don't have to experience what you're experiencing. I don't have to experience what everybody else is experiencing. We just have to be.
Yeah.
And that's, to me, is the most important thing in life that we should be doing, is not having to experience stuff in a physical world, having a knowing. And we all have to work on that.
And what you said about being in other shoes, if we could take time each day to sit under a tree and download other people's experiences and walk in their shoes, but not have to go live that existence for lifetimes or years, it would change the entire planet. Because if you are afraid of what's going on in another religion or another way of being, and it's to you it's wrong, but you go and experience that, it's not going to feel as wrong. You're going to understand that that's their right. That's what's right for them.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's these certain monks that I just love to talk about, is that they invite darkness and negativity into their temples. They entice them with beer and food. They do.
And they show up.
Yeah, and they do. And so what happens is they allow this beautiful energy to come in negativity, and then they give it a choice of changing. And then what they do is they use that negative energy as it changes into good to defeat the rest of the negativity. Isn't that beautiful? Oh,
that's so beautiful.
It is beautiful. So you got to remember that, honey, in the aspect is that just because somebody does something the way they do it doesn't mean it's wrong.
Right.
It's right for them, not for us. But we have to see that. That's that coexistence, and people don't really understand that. It really drives me nuts when a person thinks of a coexistence is that, all religions must get together and be. It's not about religion. It's coexistence of belief systems and ideals.
Absolutely.
I don't like this person because they do this. I don't like this person do this. These people are destroying the world, blah, 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 blah. Have you met this person? If you haven't met this person, you have no reason to even speak of them. And you should never speak badly of anybody anyway. You should never judge anybody, yet be judged yourself.
That's right.
And I feel that is so important right now, that that's one of the messages we need to get out there, is that we have to stop judging people. Stop labeling people. I'm really passionate about that. So it's something that I really want to drive home, is that
I love that.
we have to stop that.
We do. We do.
Exactly. So what do you label me as?
Love bug.
Oh my God.
You're just a sweetheart. And I wanted to say something about the fact that I have always appreciated your special gift in this life. You have a way of bringing people out of themselves and drawing out what their gifts are. And that's so special.
Me?
Yes, you. I love that. What an amazing thing.
Oh, you're so special to yourself.
Yeah, like you said, when you met me, I really was depressed. I was going through multiple deaths in my family. I felt like I was, so detached, and it was the worst pain of my life, and it was ongoing for a long time. And to meet somebody that, it was a series of people that led me to your class, but to have that spark ignite, and from that day to this day is completely unbelievable. And that's one of the reasons I'm out there doing what I'm doing. Is one of my passions is to do the same thing for people. I want people to know that there's more than what they think they know. There's more than what meets the eye, and they have power to change their existence.
Oh, that was beautifully said. I am quite honored. So that brings me into another question, okay? So what happens when you're out there and you're spreading love and everything else, and people don't see it as love, but see it as something else? How do you feel about that? How do you feel when somebody looks at you and is like, what do you want from me? It's not love. It's, what do you want from me?
I haven't had that yet. Maybe it's because I'm a female. Because if I'm giving nurturing, if I'm giving compassion, if I'm giving my time or my heart, so far it's been pretty well received. I haven't had anybody look at me like, what do you want from me?
But I know you've had some negative reviews and things like that in the past.
Oh, yeah. I'm trying to think.
That's okay.
Well, there are people
we don't try to remember the negative.
There are people that maybe just don't understand. I made a comment to a friend about, oh, you know what your daughter's having, boy or girl? Because she said she knew. And I said, was it your intuition? And she was, no, I believe in science. So yeah, there are people that don't get what I do at all and might look at me like, what are you talking about? So
exactly.
Yeah, in that respect, I know what you're saying.
I like that. Please explain to me how it was a boy. How did you make a boy?
Yeah.
Is it a certain way you made a boy?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's got to be a science to that, right?
I guess.
Okay. So that's what I'm saying is that we sometimes get that. We get that you're one of those people.
Yeah.
I don't believe in that. Oh, you believe in something like that? It's those questions that you get and everything. And it's life. It's really is. It's how we are looked at. So in coexistence, how do we coexist with somebody that doesn't believe in us? Isn't that funny? How to believe in us?
You have to allow the process. And like you always say, it's their journey.
It's their
and
journey.
I look at it as a huge circle that's so infinite that it's hard to see the boundaries of it. And we're all on it. And eventually we're all going to meet. So it doesn't matter that I'm at this place in the circle and this person's down lower and they're coming up. We're all eventually in time going to be there.
Yep. So here's a thought for you on that whole process. You just said that. What if somebody told Santa Claus there's no such thing as Santa Claus?
What if somebody told Santa Claus there was no such thing as Santa Claus?
Yes.
I don't know. I guess Santa Claus would say, I guess in your mind.
Exactly. That's that thought process, though, is that when we say that, it's like, I don't believe in that. I don't believe this, that. Did Jesus really die on the cross? I don't buy that. Can you really do what you do? That's the whole process then, is like, what do you believe in? And I think that's where we have to really understand, is that you and I have seen miracles in what we do and how we help people and everything else and that. And it's not we, it's the universe, how the universe has helped people.
Yeah.
But we have seen many, many miracles that is just unbelievable.
Yes.
And I love each and every one of them. But what if somebody came to us and says, prove it? Prove it's a miracle.
Oh, I love this one. I say, I can't prove it to you. And it's just a matter of something that it resonates with you or it doesn't.
Exactly. Absolutely.
For me, this is my truth, my reality. This is what I personally experience. And if you don't, that's fine.
Absolutely. I 100%, my dear, with that. It's like, it's your journey. Mm-hmm. Back to that. It's your journey. You don't have to believe it. And I'm not going to push it upon anybody. I mean, especially the foundation that was my first ever learning about spirituality was through Reiki. And when I learned Reiki, it was like, my master looks at me and says, you can't push this upon people. You can't say, I'm a Reiki master and I will touch you and make you all healed. No, you can't say that. You have to allow people to make their own decisions and their own choices. Because if you get somebody that comes in that really doesn't believe that, they're going to lay there for an hour or half hour, whatever session is that, going, this is weird. This person's touching me or they're not touching me. I don't know what I'm supposed to feel.
Yeah.
So it's that whole concept is that you have to have an understanding and an open mind to get where you're at. Do you believe that?
Yes.
Good. So let's kind of wrap this up, my dear. It's really awesome to have you here. So is there a way that somebody can get a hold of you if they want to book a session with you?
They can friend request me on Facebook.
Friend request you on Facebook? Oh
yeah,
my gosh.
Messenger.
So it's Wendy Carroll on Facebook, right?
2 R's and 2 L's.
2 R's and 2 L's on Wendy Carroll. I love it. So message you on Facebook. Is there any way, do you have a scheduling appointment or do you just right now just go by, message me and we'll set something up?
Well, I do so much of my advertising on a couple Facebook pages. People do a lot of messaging.
Do you have an email list or anything else that you...
I can do my email.
Yep. And so why don't you put it out and then they can be added to your email list too, right? Mm-hmm. All right. Go ahead. What is your
So it's my name, Wendy Carroll, 777 at yahoo.com.
Yahoo is still around?
Yes. I've had that forever, but it's Wendy and Carroll. 2 R's and 2 L's.
That is awesome. So I'm very proud to have you on the show. My name's Rod Lyman. You can look me up on Facebook also as Doc Lyman. That's
right.
A lot of fun doing that. And you can just look up the Rod and Cindy podcast and you can see all the podcasts that we do. We've been doing it for almost 3 years now. So I'm kind of excited about, coming into this new adventure. But I also am going to be coming out with another podcast called Rod Talks.
I love that.
Yes, I know. It's just fantastic. So just to wrap this up there, that we're going to have you on the next podcast. We're going to be talking about female stuff and male stuff and how they interact and some past life and, archaic thinking and how we've been treated throughout our life. I mean, it's really interesting is that we've set this precedence this week alone with my clients and that sometimes people don't realize how abusive they've been in a relationship or how their relationship's been toxic to them until somebody points it out to them.
Yes.
And it's really interesting. We're going to talk about if we should actually point that out to people. All right.
And if you do, will they see it? Will they hear it?
Oh, you're absolutely right on that.
All right. Thanks, Rod.
Thank you, dear. So, Wendy Carroll, Rod Lyman, we're going to have to say good night. Good night.